Welcome to Prosecco and Prose, episode 20.
This week's Prosecco is Corneliano Valdobbiadene Prosecco Superiore.
This week's prose is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Thank you for joining us for an episode of Prosecco and Prose. I'm Amy.
And I'm Wendy. This is a deep dive virtual book club hosted by two English teacher army wives who love to read and love the bubbly.
In each episode, we will pair a bit of bubbly with a discussion of a novel
Or a succinct short story.
I do love a short story.
So let's
Pop a cork.
for this week's episode of Prosecco and Prose.
For those of you who are listening in the car, please don't drink and drive. Save the bubbly for later.
Episode 20. This is it.
Only for now, though. We'll be back. Just a short break to plan for season 3 and to get our bearings again. And don't let me forget that I have a fun little announcement to make at the end of the episode.
Ooh.
Something big is getting ready to happen in the Horner house.
Yes, it is. And to season 3, I'm already getting excited about the reading requests we've gotten for next season.
Same, but we also have a couple things up our sleeve for the break. So be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our bonusodes.
That's not a word, Amy.
Well, it is now.
Alrighty then. And while you're subscribing, if you've enjoyed this season, we'd love for you to take a minute to rate and review us.
Yes, please. No need to write a dissertation. Just a short review helps with algorithms and is very much appreciated.
It is. Now I'm ready to get on reviewing this Prosecco. I absolutely love the label. It matches our book cover perfectly. Be sure to check out our social media for some pics. Now, you found this lovely at Trader Joe's, right?
I did. And I'll get us started with the bottle facts. This Prosecco, it's a DOCG.
Ooh, that's a top line one, which has me a bit curious about this 3.9 Vivino rating.
You know, I was wondering about that too, but we'll see what we find. It's a brut, meaning the driest, of course. We say that every episode, but every episode's a new episode.
Right?
It's least sweet, 11% alcohol, and about $11 a bottle. Not too bad, especially for a DOCG.
Not bad at all. Now, a couple of interesting things about this Prosecco. Hold on, Amy.
What? I'm just giving it the old sniffity sniff test. It's got a very strong floral scent right off the top, and I love this.
You are right. It really does. It's almost perfumey. But may I just briefly talk about this label, please?
Of course you may. I just may get a bit of tasting in while you get started, just to be prepared when you finally get to the important stuff. That's all. No big deal.
Labels are important. I mean, it is how we pick our Prosecco out and match it up to our prose.
Touché.
Thank you. So the producer is Cecilia Berita from Verona. Corneliano and Valdobbiadene are the twin towns Prosecco was born around. The Prosecco hills stretch for 50,000 acres around these two towns. And get this, in 2019 made the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
Ooh, very interesting. I do know that the area produces the highest level of quality in Proseccos. You know, the DOCG Proseccos.
Correct. Now, this label also has the term millesimato. We mentioned that in our La Gioiosa tasting.
That was the Mary Gordon short, episode 17, am I right?
I believe so.
Ooh.
Good memory. But millesimato, quick refresher, means it is a vintage-specific wine, and at least 85% of the grapes came from 2018 grown grapes, as 2018 is the year of this Prosecco.
I'm thinking when we finally get to take a trip to Italy, that is an area I'm really looking forward to exploring and also tasting.
Completely agree. On the list for sure. So, this posh Prosecco, look at it, has a golden hue. More similarities to our book cover.
Yes, a very light straw color and these bubbles.
I know.
They look like shooting stars. This is really, really pretty in the glass. I'm already loving it.
They are very fine bubbles. There is a lot of perlage in this glass, and they kind of sweep up from the bottom. It is a very pretty pour.
So initially, it really hit me as a very floral smell. Now I'm getting like an indoor farmer's market fruit stand scent. I have a very good feeling about this bubbly.
I love the smell. Normally, it's a lot of citrus, but I'm not getting that here, though. I think there is a hint of pear on the nose. Ready to taste?
Do you even need to ask? Oh, it's very acidic, obviously because of the bubbles. But I'm getting some peach in this. I can taste some apple and some pear, but it's very light. Normally the apple really jumps out at me, but it's very light here, almost Can't distinguish between the two, you?
I do get green apple, and there's this, I'm not even really sure how to describe it, but it's like green apple with lemon on the edge, like on the edge of your tongue.
Okay, yeah, I get that. You're right. It's got a citrusy finish on the edge of the mouth.
Exactly. You read my mind.
Well, it's not much harder than reading your poem.
Are you saying I'm an open book? Pun intended.
All I'm saying is we've gotten to know the voices in each other's heads pretty well over this past year. Episode 18 was a bit over the top, and we probably did no justice to all the real palm readers of the world.
Probably not. Wait, though, did you see the DM on our Instagram of the face reader that wanted to read our faces?
Yes, and I have not deleted him yet as I'm wanting to check his gig out.
I think the problem is my face is already too easy to read. What kind of reading do you think that would even be?
I truly have no idea. That's why I've got to check him out. You know, I'm too curious just to let that one go. He'll probably say I look like a wilderbilly and you, dear, are my queen.
Not going to address that with anything intelligent or unintelligent. Wilderbilly? Jeez.
Oh, I'll get back to you on that as soon as I reach back.
But back to reading this Prosecco. It is very good. I find it a bit zingy on the finish.
It's all those bubbles. And I'm going to call them stars, but it's delicious. Going to have to review it myself on Vivino. Going to give this pretty sparkler some needed love.
For sure. I'm also getting just a hint of sweet on the finish, but not too honeyish.
No, not like the Lavostra, which was good, but it was a bit on the sweet side, especially for us.
Yes, not like that. Now you, Amy, made us this delicious Trader Joe's Madagascar bourbon vanilla cake with a side of lemon curd to pair it with. And yum! It's delicious. It pairs really well. I think the light sweetness of the cake and the tart of the lemon curd find a nice balance with today's Prosecco.
Well, I like a cake that's not super sweet, and the lemon curd really brings out the lemon citrus flavors in the Prosecco.
It does. What else, though, would you pair this gem with?
I'm thinking a bruschetta, you know, the tomatoes, heavy garlic, Parmesan, some olive oil, and maybe some expensive balsamic vinegar.
That sounds delicious. I think a creamy cheese like brie or camembert might be nice as well.
I'm always up for some cheese, or should I say formaggio with my Prosecco. I don't think you can go wrong, unless we don't top off our glasses before we talk about our author.
Well, I hate to be in the wrong, so I'll take a tall pour.
Is there any other kind?
Not in this studio. Salute.
Salute.
V.E. Schwab is quite a prolific author. She is only 33 and has written 21 books, counting her graphic novels.
That is a lot. I know she writes children's and young adult books under the name Victoria Schwab, but I had no idea until recently that she had so many under her belt. She has 4 series and 3 standalone works under Victoria Schwab, and 4 series and 1 novel, this one, under V.E. Schwab.
I'm actually very interested in reading her young adult archived series. This is from her website. Each body has a story to tell, a life seen in pictures only librarians can read. The dead are called histories, and the vast realm in which they rest is the archive. Definitely adding to my mountainous TBR stack.
That does sound really intriguing. I would totally read more from her. And this book was, it was just so good.
Yeah.
Now, Miss Schwab divides her time between Nashville, a place we are quite familiar with.
Yes, we are.
Oh, in rural France and Edinburgh.
Those places are all amazing. I see where she gets her inspiration.
Yes, and speaking of inspiration, there's a great interview I found on denofgeek.com that talked a bit about her inspiration for The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This book was published in 2020, but the idea came to her nearly a decade ago.
That's an idea that's been marinating.
Yes, and a good one for sure. So I'll just quote from the article. Sometimes that's the best way to do that.
I agree.
At the time, Miss Schwab was living in someone's Liverpudlian. I think I'm saying that right. Is that right?
I don't know. I'm trying to learn Italian, not English.
Anyway, Liverpudlian shed, and in an effort to get away for the day, took a housemate on her offer of a ride to the UK's picturesque Lake District. She dropped me in this tiny little village called Ambleside, and for 8 hours, I just wandered these fairy-like woods, Schwab recalled back in 2018. And I was thinking about Peter Pan because I had just reread the original Peter Pan and thought about how sad it is because it ends with him already forgetting Wendy. And I started thinking, that's really sad. But it's not sad for him because he forgets. What would it be like if everybody else forgot? And so Addie LaRue stemmed from this moment, just wondering.
That's really interesting.
And a mouthful.
Yes, it is, but wow.
But the interview, it was really good with even more insights. I'll put the link in the show notes if anyone else would like to read it.
Oh, I know I'm going to check it out as soon as we are done. Let's talk about our characters.
Okay, warning. The spoilers start here, guys. So if you like to read first, you might want to come back to us after you've done that. And this book is definitely worth reading.
And discussing.
Yes, but first, our three main characters. Miss Adeline LaRue is our protagonist, Addie LaRue for short. This is her story, finally being told after 300 years. She is a young French girl who makes a deal with the dark to live freely.
Luke is the dark, or the devil.
I'm calling him the devil.
Well, one could argue the devil is up for debate. It is for me anyway. But he is an old god, the kind Addie was warned she should never pray to after dark.
And Henry, the human boy Addie meets in 2014. He is a lost soul with little direction on what to do with his life, currently working in a bookstore with an amazing name, The Last Word.
Loved that name. Summary?
And I also loved Book, the cat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, summary. Now, this story was told in 7 parts and switches between the past and the present being 2014. I really want to start this summary by reading the epigraph in the beginning. And it goes, "The old gods may be great, but they are neither kind nor merciful. They are fickle, unsteady as moonlight on the water or shadows in a storm. If you insist on calling them, take heed. Be careful what you ask for. Be willing to pay the price. And no matter how desperate or dire, never pray to the gods that answer after dark." Estelle Magritte, 1642 to 1719. I loved this passage. I felt like this grounded the story, and it was like a clue we didn't know we were getting on the initial read.
It definitely reads like a warning.
It does, for sure. After my initial read, I went back and read it again and got chills. It's a book that just sits with you.
I love epigraphs, but I realize I tend to just quickly read until a part in the story causes me to go back and reread it.
So what part took you back to more thoroughly reread the epigraph? The important warning.
When Addie was in the woods praying to not have to marry.
Desperate times for our Miss Addie LaRue.
Infatti. Part 1, we meet Addie. She is 23 and about to be married to a man she does not love or even really know. The year is 1714. She runs to the forest around her small village and prays with no answer until night falls. The darkness comes and Addie asks to be free to live and make her own choices. Of course, there is a price, and Addie offers her most prized possession, a carved wooden ring from her father. But the darkness only deals in souls, so she offers him her soul when she is done with it, and the deal is done. Addie is granted eternal life, but no one can remember her once she is out of their sight. In the present day, in New York City, she survives by stealing what she needs and sneaking into others' places to sleep. She gets caught by Henry trying to steal a book.
Part 2, we learn more of Addie's long past and about her visits from the darkness that happen every year on the anniversary of their deal, July 29th. Each time, the darkness wants to know if Addie is ready to give him her soul, her life. And although her life is quite difficult, Addie is stubborn, and what transpires is a centuries-long battle of wills between Addie and the darkness. Back in the present, New York City, Addie returns to Henry's bookstore to return her stolen book, but is stunned when Henry says, "I remember you."
Part 3, we see Addie and Henry's relationship develop, and there are visits to Addie's past, but Addie is reveling in the simple act of being remembered. Until encounters with Henry's friends make her realize she has to tell him the truth, and she does. And Henry's response is that he made a deal as well.
Part 4, we learn Henry's story. He feels way too much. His emotions are too close to the surface, and after a proposal ends in heartbreak, he asks to be loved in exchange for his soul. Everyone sees Henry as whatever they want to see. People are so enamored with him. Henry knows it's not real love. He knows they don't really see him. but Addie does see him.
So part 5, Henry starts to write Addie's story. We also learn more of the relationship between Addie and the darkness, now named Luke. Luke is not so regular now in his anniversary visits, often skipping years and even decades. But their battle of wills is strong, and Addie is not ready to give up her soul.
Part 6. Though we know the wooden ring cannot be lost, we learn how it comes back into Addie's possession. Luke gave it to her so she could use it to call on him whenever she needs him or is ready to surrender. It takes nearly 30 years, but when Addie is captured during World War II, she uses it. Luke admits to wanting Addie. He tells Addie he loves her. He even gives her a key to a home, something she has never been able to have, but always wanted. Luke and Addie end up having an affair for years. But when she asks to be set free, he tells her all she has to do is surrender. Addie lashes out in anger, and the house, the home, everything she has finally been able to hold on to is burned to the ground. Luke is then gone until the present, when Addie asks Luke to spare Henry.
Part 7, Henry writes Addie's story. Addie sees her story in a London bookstore and starts reading.
You know a new deal was made. But who and what? There is so much more to this wonderful story, but we will leave it at that.
So much. I just loved this book. Ready for themes?
I loved it too. Themes it is. But first, I would like to talk just a bit about binary opposition. This story had so many examples of this.
It did. Let me grab Bedford for a quick definition for anyone wanting a bit of clarification. Okay, binary opposition is a concept that suggests that people in Western culture tend to think and express their thoughts in terms of contrary pairs. Okay, so for example, something is white but not black, masculine, and therefore not feminine. It states that all elements of human culture can only be understood in relation to one another and how they function within a larger system or the overall environment.
Right. Now, the problem with binary opposition is that it creates boundaries between groups of people and leads to prejudice and discrimination. In literature, authors use binary opposition to explore the differences, the gray areas between the two groups and what can result from those perceived differences. And our themes for this discussion are an example of binary opposition, the themes of belonging and loneliness.
Yes. So the immediate perception is that these two ideas are mutually exclusive, but one can belong and still be lonely.
Exactly. And we know both Addie and Henry were lonely. Luke perhaps was too, right?
I think so. I mean, Addie tells him as much during one of their meetings. Of course, our lovely Addie is much too stubborn to admit to Luke that she is lonely herself.
Never. But remember after her coffee date with Henry, Henry says her name. Up until this point, only Luke has been able to say it, and she thinks as she leaves Henry for the evening, she is alone, but for once, it is not lonely.
Yes. Two different things, binary opposition, but existing together. We haven't word nerded in a while, and there were a few times in this book I found myself looking up word counts, and some variation of the word alone occurred 110 times.
That's quite a bit.
Right. So alone, just the word alone, was 89 times. And that quote you just gave, when you just said, was the only instance I found that wasn't associated with feeling lonely or loneliness, which occurred 19 times. Remember we read a short and you said you actually felt heat while reading it? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. I believe it was, give me a minute. It's in season 1, the Chernobyl short.
Yep.
Always forgetting the title. It's Jim Shepard.
Right. Yes. It's a 0-meter diving team.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep. I think it's why this idea of loneliness as a theme came to us, right? It's a feeling, right?
It's perfect.
Now, we talked about the idea of belonging and loneliness as something that can exist together under our binary opposition school of thought. Henry has friends, he has family, and then when he makes the deal for love, he's almost like a magnet for people and their affections. But it's not real, and he knows it. I feel like Henry is still very lonely.
I think it's hard not to be when he knows the feelings directed towards him aren't really genuine.
Right. Now, Addie is incredibly lonely. Even her name is taken away. She is physically very much alone as a woman in the 1700s and 1800s, and definitely emotionally alone.
Her only sense of belonging is to, Luke, which of course she fights, and to Henry, who is now fleeting. It's only in art that she belongs, but she is alone in the art and not exactly remembered.
No, but now her story is out, and maybe it'll take a bit off the loneliness.
Maybe.
Okay, I'm pretty sure we could ramble on ad nauseum about themes, but I'm ready for some symbols.
I think we can ramble on ad nauseum about a lot of things related to prose.
Probably.
Like the symbols in the story. Just kidding. But we'll keep it down to 3.
Which will be tough because there are so many.
So many.
Like all of the art.
Right. But that could actually be an episode in itself.
Definitely.
So I'm going to start with green, which appeared 97 times.
Wow.
And nearly all of those times were when reading about Luke's eyes. Now, this is very interesting. As you know, green is created by mixing together, the primary colors of yellow and blue.
Right.
Well, yellow signifies trials and blue signifies the word of God. So the biblical meaning of green is immortality.
Wow. That's pretty interesting and obviously fitting.
Yes, it is. Now, green is also symbolic of resurrection. Think of spring and also praise, growth, prosperity, new beginnings, flourishing, and even restoration.
So I think of jealousy with the color green, though.
That's true. And I definitely think we saw sparks of that in Luke's eyes during his and Addie's encounters over the years. But green is also a relaxing, a soothing, and even a healing color.
I think over time, Addie did find a certain sense of maybe comfort when Luke would reappear. He was the only one who said her name and remembered her.
Exactly. And Addie would have so much anxiety waiting for Luke to come to her. When he would finally appear, she could relax to an extent, of course, for another year. The battle lines were always there, though under the surface.
Oh, they were. Now, a couple of symbols associated with Addie, the carved ashwood ring from her father, re-gifted to her from Luke, and the black leather jacket also gifted to her from Luke.
While Addie cannot seem to hold on to anything for very long, these 2 gifts from Luke she cannot get rid of, no matter what she does or how hard she tries.
She can't. So a ring symbolizes eternity, infinity. Right? The circle. A commitment of some sort. But wooden rings have their own particular symbology. Wood is a strong symbol of life, growth, and strength. Because it was once part of a tree, it has gone through a life cycle.
Well, Addie is living like forever,
Right.
Tying in with the eternity meaning, and she has a lot of strength. It's rarely been easy for her, right?
It definitely hasn't. This wooden ring was also of a particular kind of wood that was often mentioned when describing it.
Yes, the ashwood, right?
Right. Ashwood symbolizes life force energy, creative expression.
She was an artist before she made her deal, and she has been present in art throughout history.
She is. No one can remember her, but she is remembered through art.
More of our binary opposition.
It is all throughout.
Mm-hmm.
But the ash tree also symbolizes the power of the spoken word, which I found interesting because Addie cannot leave a mark of her own on paper. She can only speak.
That is interesting. The only way she is able to get her story out is by telling it to Henry, and then he writes it down.
Exactly. One other thing about the ash tree, it symbolizes the world tree, a tree that joined the 3 worlds, the underworld, the Middle Earth, and the spiritual realm, which was linked with blending the past, present, and future.
That does make me think of the 3 of them, Luke, Addie, and Henry. Luke is, he's kind of the underworld in a spiritual realm. Addie is a bit Middle Earth and maybe spiritual realm, but Henry is just maybe the Middle Earth.
Yeah, I can see that. Interesting to use such a specific type of wood, but fitting. Ash also symbolizes strength and endurance.
Doesn't feel like a random choice, though. Now, Addie's black leather jacket is another example of binary opposition. Think of someone in a black leather jacket. They like to stand out. They like to get noticed, probably even remembered. Addie has this jacket, and she might stand out a bit, get noticed for a bit, but she's never remembered.
No. And while she tries to get rid of the ring, she does seem attached to the jacket.
She does, and it was familiar and something she could hold on to. But a leather jacket, for me, symbolizes toughness. It's like a skin or maybe armor that you can put on, and it can signify allegiance to a community or even a group.
Well, Addie is certainly tough. And it's interesting the part about allegiance to a community. She actually doesn't seem to belong anywhere.
No, not on Earth anyway. But maybe, and Luke does say this, that she does belong to him. She doesn't want to, though. She fights it, but it might be inevitable.
I agree with that. Let's talk about Henry's watch.
Yes. Now, this was such a good one. The watch was from Henry's deal with Luke. And oh, so fitting, because the deal was only for a year's time, and the watch marked that time.
What a thing to carry with you. I mean, every moment a reminder.
I know. Now, a watch symbolizes the human desire to be alive. It's a reminder that we are caught between the time we have and the time we don't.
Never thought of my watch that way, but it really is.
A watch also shapes the way the wearer experiences and perceives time.
Oh, Henry. That was exactly what was happening to him.
Now, I think it's safe to assume that the watch was a gift from Luke.
Right.
And when a watch is given as a gift, it symbolizes that time is a treasure.
Well, I mean, it certainly became that for Henry.
Right. But for some cultures, people will not accept a watch as a gift.
I think when you're making deals with the dark, I'm sure the gift cannot be refused or no deal.
Probably true. And perhaps Luke's gift was leaning a bit more to, the feng shui meaning. The gift of a watch here symbolizes stealing time.
Ooh.
A limited lifespan, maybe bad luck. A watch as a gift is bad, as it would shorten the relationship.
Wow. Yeah, I'm thinking that really fits the watch for Henry. Interesting stuff for sure. What did you find out on our names?
So Adeline and Addie both mean noble. And while neither of these names were in our voodoo name book, Adele, a variation of the two, was, and it was really enlightening.
Okay.
Looking at the letters A and E, A represents force and direction, and the E represents a force driving the individual, which may not be of the individual's choosing.
Again, force or strength in our Addie. And she wants to be remembered. That drives her. But that wasn't her choice. Luke put the twist on her request.
He did. Having an A at the beginning and an E at the end of a name, as in Addie, suggests that ultimately the bearer of the name will find a partner and lifestyle with which she will permanently be happy.
Really? Permanently?
You never know. Maybe Luke will end up being her enough.
I feel like Addie is much too stubborn to ever admit that.
Maybe, but she might quietly admit it to herself. Now, the name Henry means home and power. Our Henry was able to remember and say Addie's name. A huge power for Addie, but there is a conflict with the personality. The obstacle is self-doubt.
So that's kind of binary opposition. Power and self-doubt.
Oh, good point. Luke prefers to be in control.
Obviously.
And he likes to look good and keep up his physical appearance. I keep coming back to how Luke took the form of Addie's drawing, made his physical appearance appeal to her.
That is interesting.
And I've got one more bit of opposition for you.
Okay.
Luke means bright one, and Lucian, Addie's initial name for him, means light.
Oh, darkness and light. Wow. No words other than I'm ready to get on to some talk about freckles.
I know, so deep and so many contrasts. Good stuff in the book and also in this bottle. I'm just going to top us off here before we move on, if you don't mind.
Yes, all this stuff is so good. I might need a bit more cake. So yummy together. Okay, since freckles were a constant in the novel, we thought it would be fun to do some research on these cute little skin marvels.
I love that you just called them skin marvels, as I love freckles on people. I wish Josh was covered in them, so when I'm, in a playful mood, I could just get my marker out and connect the dots.
I have to say, I can't imagine, knowing him like I do, that he would appreciate that type of playfulness.
Probably not, but it sounds so fun. I love connecting the dots, and I could make a masterpiece on his body.
Keep dreaming, sister.
Okay, so we are each contributing 2 fun facts
We love
found
fun facts.
about freckles. The first one I have is a little folklorish that I'm sure some of our listeners already know.
Maybe, but it'll be like a new fact once you put your spin on it.
Keeping it interesting, my partner in prose. Keeping it interesting. So, in the way past, like in the 500s to the late 1600s, a freckled person was sometimes questioned as being a witch. So there were these people called professional prickers, and their job was to poke at people's skin. You know, the actual freckles, the moles, or extra nipples with a sharp tool to see if they'd holler.
Oh my gosh. Extra nipples?
Yes, it's like a real thing. It's called a witch's teat.
You seem quite familiar with the term.
Well, I'll show you mine after we're done recording.
I'm going to pretend you didn't just say that. But you come at me with a sharp tool, and I will come back at you with a...
Okay there, angry girl. Hold on, let me finish. These professional prickers would poke you to see if it hurt. And if it did, you had nothing to worry about. You weren't a witch, because witches feel no pain.
If I were a witch, I'd just fake it.
As would I. So, what is one of your fun facts? What did you find?
I think you actually found this first when we went down this particular rabbit hole, but no one is born with freckles.
I do remember that.
Freckles are caused by exposure to the sun. Since babies haven't been exposed, they won't have them until they've been outside. Usually don't appear until after the age of 2.
When you think about it, I have never seen a baby with freckles. How stinking cute would that be? I just love babies. But moving on, and in keeping with binary opposition, I'm going to touch on the non-freckle or the liver spot.
Love the binary catch. I've always heard that liver spots are also called senile freckles. You don't think drinking too much Prosecco will blemish our already only slightly blemished skin. You know we are not getting any younger, and your forgetfulness of some of the tasks at hand lately have me wondering about senility.
Okay, it was only twice I forgot what themes we were discussing, but it's funny you should say senile freckles, aka liver spots, because I always thought that liver spots were from an alcohol-damaged liver too. So naturally, I did some research on this.
Naturally.
I've also noticed that I have developed some strange spots since we've started the podcast and wondered if they had anything to do with our uptake in the bubbly.
And what did you find?
The senile freckle, aka, let me put all these terms in here that I've got listed, the lentigo senilis, or the solar lentigo, the age spot or liver spot have nothing to do with our job of drinking Prosecco.
Phew. That is one less thing to worry about with every pop of the cork and, you forgetting our themes?
Now, I can dole it and I can take it.
You can.
But those spots are associated with the aging process and exposure to the sun. They are benign, but can obscure or hide skin cancer, so you just have to know your spots. Most senility freckles are just considered unsightly.
I've got a few that are unsightly.
Me too. But don't care, got some gray hair.
Can I do anything about them?
We could start a GoFundMe page for Wendy's laser treatment or cryotherapy.
They're hidden, so no need. But I do like the GoFundMe page for Wendy concept.
For Prosecco?
Need you ask.
Okay, so what is your last fun freckle fact?
Freckles are often used as a trope. Love tropes, some of them. For youthfulness and also as a way to brand a young person as a misfit. Because freckles stand out, Miss Addie, making it an easy target for teasing.
Kids just don't know how cute those freckles are. Or maybe they do.
Yeah, Addie's freckles. She was not remembered, but those freckles were.
Especially in the art. Now, you told me that the story reminded you of the movie The Age of Adeline. A movie, by the way, neither of us had ever watched.
Right, but I knew it was about a woman who does not age, and honestly, that was the extent of it.
But we both watched it, and honestly, I do not understand some of the not-so-nice reviews. It was such a beautiful story. I even cried at the end. Cried as, I was really happy for Adeline.
I know. I didn't get that either. But to each their own. Okay, so we have 2 Adelines. Both do not age, though Addie's is through a deal, and the movie Adeline's is from an accident.
But where the movie Adeline does finally get to age, we are left unsure as to the book Addie's fate.
And both ladies have to stay on the move to survive. Book Addie, because no one knows her, and movie Adeline, because they do. And not aging makes one really stand out, and not in a good way.
No, but movie Adeline was, she was really happy at the end when she found that gray hair. And I was so happy for her. Now hold that thought on gray hair, as I will come back to that.
Okay, I hope you don't forget. But I was so happy for her as well. I mean, how can you live when you can't really make any connections? And neither of them could. Yes, Adeline had her daughter, and I guess you could say Addie had Luke, but the time spent together for both ladies was sporadic.
It really was. And I had another thing stand out to me. Not sure if you picked up on it, but the number 29 showed up in both movie and in the book. Movie Adeline stayed 29 for decades, and July 29th was the anniversary for Addie and Luke. It was just really uncanny, right?
Did not pick up on that. And that is a really interesting detail. Honestly, I don't know how you do that sometimes. Maybe I don't read good enough. Anyways, I'm sure we could go on, but we're wondering if any of you guys made this connection, or maybe you made a completely different connection. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, Amy, you know I did not forget. Tell us your announcement. We all want to know.
Glad you remembered.
I wasn't the one forgetting stuff.
Okay, but I would never want to forget this important news to share with our friends or our listeners, as they are getting to feel like such family.
They are. Now, is this news that may require a toast? I mean, we've got our Prosecco.
Yes, it is. Josh and I are going to be grandparents late spring.
Aww.
Been dying to tell everyone for months, but it's the parents' news first, and I didn't want to give away any spoilers.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
What an exciting way to end the season. So, we've been learning Italian in our off time. You going to be a nonna? And what about Josh? Wait, do I get a title?
Well, if I get to be Nona, then Josh has to be Nono. Not sure he's really on board with that, but sometimes you just kind of have to go with the flow. I love the name Nono. And for you, my dear, I'm thinking you look like a Zia, which is...
I know, Auntie in Italian. Well, I think that is the perfect way to wrap season 2. Going to be so cute. We'd love to have you join us for our epilogue in 2 weeks. We'll recap the season and share some of the great feedback we've received from our listeners.
We will also share our favorites from this season. Books, stories, Proseccos.
Well, cheers to you and Josh.
Thank you.
Cheers to the new parents-to-be. And thanks to everyone who contributed to season 2. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you again for joining us for this episode of Prosecco and Prose. To view the complete show notes for today's episode, visit www.proseccoandprose.com.
Before you go, please subscribe to Prosecco and Prose so you can be alerted of new episodes when they are dropped. You can subscribe right now in the app you're listening to.
We've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying the podcast so far, let us know. It takes just a minute for you to leave us a review, which helps us and Apple know that listeners like you enjoy our show.
And that helps us expand our reach. It really does make a difference. I'm Amy.
And I'm Wendy, signing off as our bottle of bubbly is now empty.
See you for our next episode, and in the meantime, pop a cork and read.